Earth is home to many creatures. Some may even consider a few of them monsters. But what of those more elusive and hidden creatures? The ones we just can't seem to find. Welcome to Monday Morning Monsters. Cryptozoologist and paranormal researcher Barnaby Jones talks about the unknown, mythical, undiscovered, and unidentified creatures from around the world, and the people who have seen them, look for them, and research them. Hear from witnesses about their encounters, as well as renowned names in the field about their work and research. Barnaby is the founder and lead investigator for Cryptids, Anomalies, and the Paranormal Society based in Wisconsin. CAPS travels across Wisconsin and beyond looking for connections between different phenomena and how they can all be connected. Now, your host of Monday Morning Monsters, Barnaby Jones.
Good morning, monsters. Today is a bittersweet day for me here. It is, as you may know, my final episode here on WLTK-DB Talk Radio. But it is also an awesome day because I have an amazing guest. I have Ken Gerhard here backstage, and I'm really looking forward to that. So before we get into it with Ken, let's go through our morning stuff here. So, guys, next week I start Monday, May 1st, Monsters on the Edge. It is my brand new show on Doug Hychek's Untold Radio Network AM. And it's going to be the same time, same everything, except you'll be able to stream it on a different area. You'll still be able to comment and everything, and we're going to have call-in, so you can actually call and talk to our guests, and it's going to be a great show. My first week next week is going to be Ben Brunell and Carrie Bladorn, the Hodag Historical Society, and they're from Wisconsin. And I also have Jay Bachochin coming on to talk about Wisconsin and some of his recent sightings and stuff down here, or up here, depending where you are. And it's going to be greetings from Wisconsin. So a lot of Wisconsin stuff on our first episode. So looking forward to that. Again, same time, noon to 1 p.m., wherever you watch us, whenever you watch us. I'll be there, just on a different network. So thanks for watching on this one. We'll get to that later. If you haven't watched it yet, On the Trail of Undiscovered Beasts, Season 1 is streaming now on Paraflix. You can watch all about Bigfoot in Wisconsin and all of our research from Cryptids, Anomalies, and the Paranormal Society. And if you want to show your support for this show and all my other shows and wear our apparel, you can go to our shop, wisconsincaps.com, and click on Shop Our Store. You can find t-shirts and magnets and hoodies and stickers and mugs and tote bags and anything else that you want to slap our logo on. You can find it there. While you're online, make sure that you find us on all of our social media platforms on Patreon, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube. You can find us at Wisconsin Caps, and you can also find us at WI Caps on Instagram. Coming up in May here, if you got your tickets, you can come out to the Ohio Bigfoot Conference. It is May 6th, coming up in just, I think, 2 weeks now. And I'm pretty sure all the tickets are sold out. But the vendor area is free to come out and check out. So that is at the Salt Fork State Park there. And that's in just a couple weeks. And then we head up here to Rhinelander, Wisconsin, May 20th for the Hodag Heritage Festival. And if you want more information on that, tune into my show next week on Untold Radio AM. And you can hear the guys that are running it talk about it. And we are also doing a Bigfoot hike that evening that is just by Caps. You can get tickets for that if you want to come out and investigate and see some stories and evidence of Bigfoot in Rhinelander. We're going to have that that evening on May 20th in Rhinelander, Wisconsin. Small Town Monsters Festival, June 3rd in Canton, Ohio. We are going to be out there. A lot of great guests at that event as well. And the Marinette Menominee Bigfoot and Paranormal Convention is June 9th and 10th in Marinette, Wisconsin, sponsored by Paraflix, Paralinked, Ravenwood Gardens Incorporated, and American Ghost Walk Tours and Caps. Myself, Christopher Noel, Angela Zabel, and Chad Lewis will be the speakers, and you can come out and have dinner with us on the 9th. If you want to get tickets for that, you have to get it by May 15th in advance so we know how many people to expect for the dinner. You cannot get them in person, so get your advance tickets for that. Angela will be doing a gallery reading that evening on the 10th, as well as vendors and our speakers. June 17th, we head down to Chicago for the Chicago Paranormal Convention and MI Paracon in Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan in August. And then September 22nd through the 24th, we are in Glen Beulah, Wisconsin at the Great Lakes Paranormal Conference. And then, of course, CryptidCon in Lexington, Kentucky in November. That's it. That's all for now. There's more, but it's not up yet. Always more. Always more. All right. And speaking of more, I would spend an entire episode here just talking about the resume and the things that my guest here has done. So I'm going to let him speak for himself because we'll get into all this stuff. But he is an author. He's a lecturer. He has appeared on so many TV shows and stuff that I can't even keep track of it. And I don't know how he does, as well as talking around the country. And yeah, amazing guy. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to my show, Ken Gerhard. Ken, how you doing?
Hey, Barnaby. I'm doing well. How are you today?
I'm doing awesome. I'm so glad you're here, man. So what have you to recently?
Oh, gosh. Man, I'm always juggling a lot of different projects. So working on helping a friend right now with a book, doing a lot of research and interviews and things. I can't really talk about that too much because it's his project, but doing some filming. I'm currently can be seen on a show called The Proof Is Out There on the History Channel Friday nights. Just got picked up for a 4th season, and so we've been filming some segments for that. And I have this time of year, as you kind of alluded to there in your introduction, there's a lot of events coming up. So I'll be in Eastern Tennessee this coming weekend for the Southeast Tennessee Paracon, and then I've got the West Texas Paracon a couple weeks later, and the Kiamichi, Oklahoma Bigfoot Festival after that. So yeah, just a lot of traveling and research and some filming, just kind of a mixed bag of things. I'm also a volunteer at the San Antonio Zoo, so I spend quite a bit of time up here at the zoo throughout the course of the week as well.
Wow, that's awesome. Lee says, Ken, looking forward to meeting you in Wisconsin. Are you coming up to Wisconsin, Ken?
I don't think I have anything booked in Wisconsin this year, at least not that I can think of off the top of my head.
Yeah. I should know this if you were.
Huh.
We had you last year at our the Marinette Menominee Bigfoot Convention.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that last year. It was a highlight. I've done a few festivals in Michigan in recent years. Seems like there have been some cool Bigfoot conferences in Michigan as well. I can't think of anything coming up in Wisconsin, to be honest with you.
Yeah. The only like cryptid related thing that we got really in Wisconsin is the Milwaukee Paracon in October. So I have to tell T that you need to come up for that.
Oh yeah. Man, I always love coming up there to the Northwoods. It's beautiful country. I dig the people. I grew up in Minnesota till I was about 11. So my family would spend a lot of time going over to Wisconsin for fishing and stuff. And so I love that whole part of the country.
Awesome. So how long have you been down in Texas then?
I moved to Texas when I was about 11 years old, and I've been here ever since. So, most of my life. I'm currently living in San Antonio. I've been here for about 16 to 17 years. Prior to that, I was in the Houston area for 20 some years. But yeah, I kind of been in Texas. I don't know if I have a Texas accent. I think I still might have a little bit of the Minnesota thing going on. It's hard to tell, but I certainly don't have a recognizable Texas drawl, is what they call a drawl, you know.
I think for somebody like you that travels so much and experiences so much of the country, you don't really get a chance to lock onto that accent, you know, because you're traveling so much, and you know you constantly are hearing different accents and stuff. So
that's true. I do travel a lot.
Mm-hmm. Me and Ma were down in South Carolina a couple weeks ago, and we said that we were going to lay heavily into the Wisconsin side of it. That was pretty fun.
I guess they probably don't hear a lot of that down there.
Yeah. How y'all doing? And
mm-hmm.
Golly. Yeah. Oh, good times. So I was gonna ask you, I know you're not really into it, but you were just at an alien convention.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
So how did you get into or not get into, but how did you get roped into doing the alien con down there, and you study aliens now?
No, I don't study aliens. I find it fascinating. It's a fascinating subject, but I'm not an alien studier. But yeah, the Alien Con is an event that is, I guess it's kind of put on by the producers of Ancient Aliens and some of those other shows, Skinwalker Ranch, some of those shows on History Channel. And they had been planning on doing a cryptid panel, just kind of as like a different type of event for Alien Con, which I guess has been going on for a few years now. It seems like a pretty popular, well-attended event. And they organizers just called me up and said, you know, we heard that you are someone that we want to get on our cryptid panel. And specifically, it was a cryptid panel for the show Unexplained with William Shatner. I've done 3 cryptid episodes now for that show, where we covered a wide range of topics from, oh gosh, the Mongolian death worm to Black Panthers to thylacine, you name it. A lot of cryptids that we covered on those episodes. So yeah, they invited me down to, it was in Pasadena, California in January. I'm sorry, March. And it was myself, John Dover, who's on a show called Navajo Rangers. He's a Navajo gentleman, a law enforcement ranger that patrols the reservation there. And Hugh Newman, who is on a lot of TV shows talking about giants. If you're interested in the legends and traditions of giants, that's kind of his wheelhouse. So the 3 of us were on this panel. It was moderated by the executive producer of Unexplained, a guy named Rob O'Brien, who I've worked with for years on Ancient Aliens and other shows. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it down there. Got to meet a lot of interesting people. The panel went well, I think. We covered a lot of different topics, from giants to skinwalkers and things that I don't personally consider to be cryptids per se, but you know, it was just kind of an open discussion. And yeah, the other show that I'm on, The Proof Is Out There, they were there as well. They did a panel, so I attended that. And I guess my fanboy moment was that I got to meet Eric von Daniken, who's the author of a book called Chariots of the Gods, which I've had a copy of that book since, you know, the 70s when I was a kid. You know, even though cryptozoology has always been my thing, but even as a kid, I was reading about, you know, sometimes I'd read books about aliens, UFOs, or ghosts or whatever. I found it interesting. So getting to meet Eric von Daniken, who's really, I think he's like 87 years old now, but he's really the inventor of this whole concept of ancient aliens, and you know, that aliens have been visiting our planet for thousands of years. At least he was the one that really marketed that concept years ago. And so, yeah, he signed my copy of Chariots of the Gods for me, which was a great honor. So that was fun. And got to hang out with the alien people. I was kind of a little bit of an outsider, but I was welcomed into the social settings and got to break bread with a lot of the alien UFO researchers. And they're all, very fascinating people. So it was a good time.
Very cool. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Like I said, you have a huge list of things that you've been a part of, and that you were on at least one episode of Ancient Aliens, right?
Oh, I've been on 2. Yeah.
Yeah, because I know they've done like Bigfoot episodes and stuff on there, and I vaguely remember you being part of like one of those. So, like I said, you've been on so many things, but yeah.
Yeah, I've been on a couple of ancient. It was actually the first episode of Ancient Aliens I did was in 2015, and I jokingly referred to it as the episode that no one's ever seen, but it's called Creatures of the Deep, and it covers like sea monsters. So we talk about like the Kraken and mermaids and just deep sea creatures. And, there's always a little bit of an alien spin on that show, obviously. I don't think I wasn't on a Bigfoot episode. And then I was recently on just this past year. And in fact, the episode aired when I was out there at the festival that same night. But they did an episode recently on the Alaska Triangle. And of course, I co-hosted that series Missing in Alaska on History Channel, which kind of was based on the whole concept of this mysterious Alaska Triangle area. So yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Very cool. So you're always kind of like more of a flesh and blood kind of person with these creatures and that, but it seems like you do dabble a little bit into like the Missing in Alaska, the weird, the bizarre, the aliens and stuff a little bit as well.
Well, yeah, I kind of break it up into categories. I think basic cryptozoology is based on the concept of undiscovered animals. So I guess I am an aper or a flesh and blood guy in terms of Bigfoot, lake monsters, thunderbirds, Black Panthers, and things like that. But I have investigated and written a book about the Mothman and other flying humanoids. I've organized a Dogman conference a couple of times for the so-called Dogman. So some of those weird things like that, which I don't think are technically cryptids. I guess I would refer to them as just strange creatures. I don't see how they could be, and of course it's all speculation, Barnaby. So when we say flesh and blood, not flesh and blood, I mean, what are these things? We don't really know. What are these constructs? We just know that people have reported having sightings and encounters with all kinds of strange creatures throughout the world. And, I find it fascinating. So as far as theories and things, so again, some cryptids I would view as most likely undiscovered species, even though, obviously very remarkable and in some ways monstrous species. But the other constructs, things that I just talked about, like Mothman and Dogman and stuff, those obviously don't fit within the paradigm of the natural world. So you have to look at alternative explanations. And even though I don't really have any good ones, you could, if you're open-minded, you could certainly consider, string theory and these talks about other dimensions and portals or other realities and planes of existence, or spirit phenomenon, things that manifest. Who knows? I personally, I think there's something. I think there's validity to the phenomenon, but I also think that it's in a way like far beyond our comprehension and our ability to understand what these things represent.
Absolutely. I do a presentation on like just basic cryptozoology and like talk about the animals that have been discovered, like the gorilla, the okapi, and stuff like that, and then get into more of the things that have been extinct or thought to be extinct, and that, and go on through there. And one of the things that I talk about is the platypus, and this thing is one of the weirdest creatures, and we know that it exists. It's a mammal that lays eggs. It has poison, or venom, sorry, or well, I'm confused, but anyway,
no, it's venomous spurs. Yeah, it does.
Yeah. And it just goes on and on with the things that this animal has and does, and just this amalgamation of weirdness, and we know that they exist. So we are very self-centered creatures to think that we understand everything that's out there and that could be natural or like normal or whatever, as opposed to being the paranormal and the other things like you were talking about. When you're talking about like some of the things that people say Bigfoot or Dogman and Mothman and those things can do. But yeah, I always think that's really interesting and just very, very narrow-minded of humanity to think that.
Yeah, and I am very open-minded, Barnaby. I always, that's my disclaimer. I start any argument that I make with someone that's a proponent of the other side. I know there are people that are squarely convinced that Bigfoot is an interdimensional creature, but the vast majority of evidence that we have up to this point, we can't ignore that evidence that's been collected, and that's in the form of mostly thousands of eyewitness accounts, the footprint evidence, the Patterson-Gimlin film. That evidence seems to indicate that Bigfoot is more than likely not an interdimensional creature, but just a, very rare and elusive, undiscovered or undocumented hominin, something, from millions of years ago that's still around. I know that people like to kind of focus on the people that advocate the paranormal Bigfoot or the interdimensional Bigfoot. I've found that they kind of like to cherry pick their evidence. So they'll pick all the weirdest cases they have. Yeah, but I heard about this guy that saw this, and then this trackway disappeared. It's like, but that's, you're choosing your evidence to fit your hypotheses, but you can't, you have to look at the preponderance of evidence. And the vast majority of thousands of Bigfoot sightings, it's always, what's the most common sighting that people have, Barnaby, of a Bigfoot? Yeah, it runs across the road at night in front of their headlights. I mean, that happens all the time, which, it's a perfectly natural thing. I mean, other animals do that too. Deer and whatever, they run across the road. They're often seen in the woods. They're hiding behind trees. They're drinking water. They're foraging for food. I mean, those are all very natural behaviors. The sightings of them like vanishing into thin air and the weird orbs and all that, those do happen rarely, but not enough to build your hypotheses around. I think those are more like outlier type situations. So, and I think this has kind of been my consolation in terms of people that advocate the interdimensional Bigfoot is all that maybe there is an aspect of the Bigfoot phenomenon that is kind of more paranormal, but I don't think it's the actual Bigfoot. I think it's more of like something that's mimicking Bigfoot, or that people are interpreting as Bigfoot because they're out in the woods at night and there's all these weird things are happening. But who knows? I mean, we don't really know. I certainly would accept a paranormal or an interdimensional Bigfoot if I saw one walk out of a portal, or I saw that, I would accept it at that point. But in the meantime, I'm going to stick with kind of the research that's been going on since the 50s, which is pretty traditional, in terms of, like you said, road crossings, running through the woods. They leave footprints. Some people think they manipulate trees and branches. I mean, those are all things that should be explainable within the zoological world.
And the fact that they match primate behavior and other animal behavior, you have those connections. You have the history of, like you said, like Gigantopithecus and the other ancient species that, you have that fossil record to back it up. Whereas other things, like you brought up Mothman and that, even Dogman, you have large canines. Whether or not they walk upright or not, I mean, going by a fossil record, you really can't, you can't determine the color of a creature or anything from bones for the most part.
Right.
And so you just don't know. But when you're talking about these things like Mothman and that, you don't have a fossil record that shows anything like that having existed,
It's not the fossil record, then it doesn't make sense in that paradigm of you nailed it, Barnaby. That's what we look at. Is something that looks like that represented in the fossil record? And if it is, then it's more likely than not that it's just an ancient animal or an ancient lineage. But if it's something like Mothman or a Dogman or some weird hybrid type thing, then it doesn't make any sense in the natural world. And who knows? At that point, all bets are off.
Let's switch gears here for a little bit. You wrote the whole book on the flying humanoids and flying cryptids and stuff like that. So let's change over to that. What are your thoughts on the whole like pteranodons and flying pterosaurs and stuff like that still existing?
Well, that's interesting. I have interviewed dozens of people that swear they've seen living pterosaurs, which of course pterosaurs are an ancient lineage of flying reptiles, not birds, but reptiles. They weren't dinosaurs. They were related to dinosaurs. They were archosaurids. And they were around for, from the fossil record, we know they were around for about 150 million years. I think they sprung up in the Triassic and up to the end of the Cretaceous. There were different types, Pteranodon and Quetzalcoatlus northropii, and some of those giant ones that had like the 40-foot wingspan, really monstrous, some of the largest things that ever flew, largest animals that ever flew. But there were also some very small ones. There were some that were as big as birds and crows, and there were the early rhamphorhynchoids, which had a long tail. But I've interviewed dozens of people that swear they've seen them flying around. There's no evidence in the fossil record that they survived beyond the extinction event at the end of the Cretaceous 65 million years ago. And the eyewitness descriptions are a little bit across the map. I mean, you have some people that say that they've seen the giant pterodactyl type that have a 20-foot wingspan. Other people say that they're smaller, 6-foot wingspan or whatever with the long tail. I have to say it's very difficult to make a scientific argument that they do exist, because surely if these things were around, you have to have a breeding population, of course, and they would have theoretically sustained their population for 65 million years, which means that there would have been presumably fossils that were found in sediments that were less than 65 million years old, right? You would have maybe found them in the Pleistocene sediments or Miocene or something. So it is kind of a problematic concept. But, there have been some consistencies. My colleague Lyle Blackburn and I did an investigation in Oklahoma a few years ago where we interviewed two sets of eyewitnesses in Oklahoma that lived in the same town, a mother and daughter, and then a father and daughter on the opposite side of town that had both claimed that they'd seen this small pterosaur with like a 6-foot wingspan. And their descriptions were very similar, and they were basically around the same time period, about a year or two apart. These folks didn't know each other, but when we interviewed them separately, we were really struck by how consistent their descriptions were of what they claimed they saw. So, that's the thing that's really mystifying, Barnaby, is when you interview people and they have a very, consistent description, and you have multiple witnesses. So, they're corroborating each other. So, what are the chances that both people are wrong about what they saw? So it's a fascinating phenomenon. I don't know. There's there's a group of American pterosaur researchers. Some of your listeners that are kind of big cryptozoology fans have probably heard of names like Jonathan Whitcomb, Garth Guessman, Paul Nation. There's a whole group of these researchers, Jason McLean, that have been researching these reports all over North America and have actually written books and built up an interesting database. Some of them have actually even gone to New Guinea. You've probably heard of in Papua New Guinea, these things are known as the ropen or the dua or indaba birds. And there are people that have gone down there and researched there. And actually, it almost seems like you could make a stronger argument for surviving pterosaurs in the jungles of New Guinea, which is a pretty remote part of the planet where new things are being discovered all the time. So I don't know. It's a fascinating mystery. You know, as much as I would like to think there are still surviving pterosaurs, it just seems highly unlikely. But then again, you have the conundrum, which is the eyewitnesses, which are generally pretty consistent and very sincere people that swear they've seen these things. So that's why it's a great cryptozoological mystery.
Yeah, when you're talking, if these things have survived for 65 million years to this day, and people are only seeing them in remote pockets, wouldn't you think that if you have a breeding population of these things, that eventually that population would outgrow the resources in a very small area, and they would have to expand and expand out, and you would see them more places than that? So that's interesting that you bring that up as well, because you only see these, like, I mean, I guess I don't know, like, I haven't done a lot of research them because I haven't heard too many reports up here in Wisconsin or that. But when you're researching these, are they mostly like in the southern part of Wisconsin, the southern part of the U.S., like Texas? And I know, are you familiar with a recent report out in New Mexico?
I think I heard about that. It seems like most of the sightings are in South Texas, Oklahoma, New Mexico, Southern California, and Arizona. So they're at the southwestern United States. But, and I've got several of them mapped out here on my wall. I can't, unfortunately, I'm pointing in the wrong direction, but I have a map over here with all of the pins of different sightings. And it looks like, I mean, you know, they're everywhere. Washington State, Oregon, Canada, Wisconsin, you know. So you're right. That doesn't really make a lot of sense zoologically speaking, because, you know, in terms of adaptation, pterosaurs would probably be, or any animal is going to be adapted to a very niche sort of environment, particularly if it's something like this that we're talking about theoretically, that's like a very rare, you know, kind of thing, that kind of a holdover from the past. So, you know, you wouldn't expect something like that to be easily adapt to other environments, colder climates and things like that. I mean, these are reptiles. They may have been warm-blooded though, because we know that they were actually, their bodies were covered with kind of a furry substance called pycnofibers, which were basically like primitive feather-like structures. Not their wings. The wings were still kind of bare and leathery and smooth, but the bodies were covered with this, you know, we know now from fossils that have been found that they had these pycnofibers in their body, which kind of indicates they may have been warm-blooded or endothermic. And so they may have, like birds, may have been able to generate their own warmth. So, yeah, it's pretty fascinating. But yeah, it doesn't really make sense in terms of the zoological and ecological aspect of what people are claiming.
I don't know how much you know about this to dig into it, but we talked a lot about the fossil record in this show. And when you have these animals become fossilized, and we're talking about like a major gap here in time of, you know, like how old fossils are, right? Because it takes a certain set of conditions for an animal to actually become fossilized.
Yeah,
because otherwise, you know, like we talk about, you know, like, why don't you find a Bigfoot body, you know, in these bones, or a bear, you know, out in the wilderness as well? And we know that these things, you know, just get eaten and decomposed so fast that, are we not seeing fossils of Bigfoot and these more modern pterosaurs because there just isn't the conditions to create a fossil record?
Well, you're right. Fossils are kind of a perfect example of a best case scenario or happenstance, where something has to die and then immediately gets buried in mud or something that's going to preserve its remains for a very long period of time. So fossils are technically, it's very rare because they're, you know, but on the other hand, we do have a ton of fossils from around the planet of different species from all kinds of different eras. So what it indicates is that those species that are fossilized probably had healthy populations for a long period of time. And so it increased their chances of being fossilized, if that makes sense. Now, I think a lot of it also has to do with environment, because in moist environments, like in a rainforest or something, you might not have as good a chance of fossilization because, because it's damp when something dies, you have microbes and things that are, decomposition happens at a much faster pace and things like that. If you don't have mud and different sediments and things that can cover over lava, things that can quickly cover over the remains, you might not have. And that's been one of the arguments for years about why we don't have fossilized Bigfoot remains. But still in all, Bigfoot would have been here in North America during the Pleistocene, during the Ice Age. And we have a pretty healthy representation of animals from the Pleistocene here in North America. Woolly mammoths and giant beavers and bears and things like that. But so far as we know, no Bigfoot fossils from that era. The only argument that I can make is that Bigfoot is presumably, even during that time period, may have been one of the more rare animals. I mean, it had a viable breeding population. It was sustainable, but maybe it wasn't a super prevalent animal like some of these other species were. And so it's been one of those kind of niche things where it was able to, and has been able to, kind of hold on for a long period of time, despite not having the vast numbers in its population that other species might have.
Well, let's delve into that a little bit if you want here. You got like creatures like we'll throw a group here. Like you have the giant ground sloths, you have the woolly mammoths, you have the saber-toothed tigers, just these large mammal creatures from the Ice Age time and stuff. And you have Gigantopithecus or Bigfoot. So do you know like what the population size of these creatures would have been? Like compare like a Bigfoot back in the day to any of these other creatures. How do those populations contrast and compare, and why do we have fossil record of those compared to this?
That's a great discussion, and it's really hard to speculate about populations in the past. There is a current working hypotheses or best guess that the population of Sasquatches or Bigfoots currently in North America probably in the range of about 4,000 individuals, making it incredibly rare. I'm going to talk about 4,000 individuals spread across Alaska, Canada, Wisconsin, North America, Texas, Florida. So it's a very rare animal if there's only 4,000 Bigfoots currently around. And it's just a guess, Barnaby, but it's based on, and I write about this in my book, The Essential Guide to Bigfoot, but it's a guess that was originally put forward by Dr. Grover Krantz, the physical anthropologist. Meldrum kind of still advocates that, and he and I have had discussions about this. During the Ice Age, about 11,000 years ago, you would think the population was probably much better or much more robust because there was no competition with humans or Homo sapiens. Humans hadn't really come over into the New World, as far as we know, until the Clovis people 11 or 12,000 years ago, although there's now evidence that they may have been here earlier. And I think that humans, Homo sapiens, would have always been the greatest competition for Bigfoot in terms of, hunting for food and different things like that, direct competition. But so maybe during the Pleistocene, there were maybe, I don't know, 4 or 5 times that many. So maybe there were 20,000 Bigfoots, 50,000 spread throughout the continent. So it was still during that time a very rare animal, compared to woolly mammoths. And I don't even know if there's data on how many woolly mammoths might have been in North America during the Ice Age, but I would think maybe hundreds of thousands, a couple 100,000. So it's probably, well, let's look at it this way. We think that there are probably 150 bears currently for every Bigfoot. So maybe using that same model and going back and extrapolating that back into the Pleistocene and the Ice Age, we could have said that maybe there were only 50 bears for every Bigfoot back then, which would still, give a bear a 50 times more chance of being fossilized than a Bigfoot, because they were just 50 times more common. So we don't know, but it's a great discussion to be had. It's fascinating speculation, but I don't think we have an accurate enough data to really know what those numbers were.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It's fun to talk about that stuff, though. I mean, like, there's so many different ways you can look at this, and there's so much things that, I mean, I always say this, looking back into history and science, and we used to think that the sun revolved around the earth and that we were the center of the universe. And as science evolves and technology evolves, we learn more and more and more. So everything that we knew back in the day turns out is not true anymore. So all the stuff that we're learning and constantly evolving, and science is constantly evolving and learning new things. And it's just interesting to see, the things that we didn't know back then. Now we have these better chances to get into it. And I think that's a great segue here. We got to take a quick break. And today I wanted to air part of, because it gets into more of like the benefits and stuff of it. But I wanted to air part of the promo for Doug Meldrum. Wow. Doug Highchecks. I put the two of them together. Meldrum's part of it. Doug's part of it. I just slapped them together.
They are.
Doug Highcheck has a Kickstarter right now. I'll put the link in the show notes down there. And I want to show you, and Ken, you said you hadn't seen this either, so this will be cool. So this is the promo for the Kickstarter for Legend Meets Science 2 by Doug Highcheck. So let's take a look at that quick.
In the depths of our world's most remote and uncharted forests, an enigma has captivated the hearts and minds of people for generations. Bigfoot, Sasquatch, Yeti. This legendary creature has been known by many names, but its existence remains one of the greatest mysteries of our time. Now we invite you on a thrilling journey into the unknown with Legend Meets Science 2, a groundbreaking documentary that will change everything you thought you knew about Bigfoot. Join us as we uncover never-before-seen strategies and cutting-edge technology that could finally reveal the truth about this elusive creature. Witness exclusive footage captured using innovative camera traps designed specifically for this enigmatic being. But what makes these camera traps so unique? And how will they revolutionize our understanding of Bigfoot? Discover how an ingenious invention, a remote-controlled interactive robot, might change everything we know about this mysterious creature. Explore fascinating theories behind Bigfoot's extraordinary abilities and uncanny ability to evade capture. Could certain individuals hold the key to finally capturing this mysterious creature on film? Delve into cutting-edge research and analysis that could provide vital clues about this enigmatic being. Separate fact from fiction as we examine popular hoaxes and analyze what sets genuine evidence apart. Join experts as they unravel astonishing insights into the true nature of Bigfoot. Will these findings change our perception of this legendary creature forever? From analyzing footprints and dental evidence to exploring Bigfoot's diet, migration patterns, and vocalizations, our groundbreaking documentary will leave you questioning everything you thought was possible. By supporting our groundbreaking documentary film series, Legend Meets Science 2, you'll not only be part of a monumental quest for knowledge, but also receive incredible rewards that will make your experience even more unforgettable. As a token of our immense gratitude, we'll immortalize your name in the credits of our groundbreaking documentary. You'll forever be linked to this epic journey as we explore the enigmatic world of Sasquatch together. Pledge your support now, and you'll receive 3 signed DVDs, Legend Meets Science and Legend Meets Science 2 Part 1 and Part 2. Plus, proudly display 2 stunning signed posters from both films, an eye-catching reminder of your contribution to this extraordinary project. Immerse yourself in captivating stories, fascinating research, and mind-blowing discoveries with our collection of 14 exclusive ebooks. From Sasquatch Central to the Freeman Bigfoot Files, these riveting reads will captivate your imagination and fuel your quest for knowledge. Be the first to get the companion ebook for Legend Meets Science 2, written by anthropologist Dr. Jeff Meldrum. Pledge at this level, and you'll receive build kits for both the Sasquatch Outpost and the Bigfoot Museum. Create a personal tribute to these legendary creatures while showcasing your commitment to uncovering their secrets. Join us for an exciting private Q&A webinar on Untold Radio AM, where we'll discuss the latest findings and answer your burning questions. Plus, enjoy a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to spend 60 minutes one-on-one with documentary producer Doug Hychek, picking his brain and learning from his vast experience in the field. Show off your love for Sasquatch with an exclusive Legend Meets Science 2 t-shirt and signed hat. Plus, receive an executive producer credit for Legend Meets Science 2, showcasing your dedication to bringing this incredible story to life. This is it, the pinnacle of rewards. Pledge at this level and receive a one-off high-powered custom-built Sasquatch Research electric bike. Pickup only. Then spend a day with Doug Hychek himself, training on the bike, enjoying lunch together, and embarking on an unforgettable bike ride as you explore the world of Sasquatch like never before. Don't miss out on these amazing rewards. The time to act is now. Pledge your support and help us bring the truth about Sasquatch to light. Meet Doug Hychek, the visionary filmmaker who has captivated audiences with his groundbreaking work in wildlife research and cryptozoology. With over 270 TV features to his name, including the hit series Monster Quest on the History Channel, Doug is a respected industry leader, credentialed technologist, camera systems inventor, and wildlife researcher. Doug has documented never-before-seen behaviors in animals such as black bears, beavers, fish, and invertebrates. His team even captured the first-ever footage of a free-swimming true giant squid in its natural environment for the History Channel. But Doug's true passion lies in unraveling the mystery of Bigfoot. With decades of experience researching both known animals and yet-to-be-proven cryptids, he is uniquely positioned to deliver a captivating documentary that explores this enigmatic world. Introducing Scott Hoffman, an award-winning cameraman with an unyielding passion for capturing the extraordinary. Having traversed through 38 countries in search of breathtaking footage, Scott brings unparalleled expertise to this project. Armed with state-of-the-art 6K and 8K red digital cinema cameras and an extensive array of camera movement tools, Scott is ready to capture unprecedented footage that will leave audiences speechless. Together, Doug Hychek and Scott Hoffman form an unstoppable team, a perfect blend of passion, expertise, and technological prowess. They are more than qualified to bring this ultimate Bigfoot documentary to life, but they need your help. Support their Kickstarter campaign today and join them on this extraordinary journey as they uncover the truth about Bigfoot. Are you ready for the adventure of a lifetime?
Oh man!
Wow. I'm in. Sign me up.
I love Lee down here. I get my bike. I had Doug on the show a couple weeks ago, and Lee was like, "How can I get one of those bikes?" There you go, Lee. You can get your bike.
It's a pretty sweet looking bike. I'll tell you what. Very cool. Yeah, that should be. I'm looking forward to that. I finally had the pleasure and honor of meeting Doug in person and hanging out with him at the Minnesota Bigfoot Conference this past year, and he's a fascinating guy, very brilliant, kind of a polymath. You know, he's just got a lot of different interesting skills, and you know, the technology that, you know, the way he's on top of all that. And he's definitely the right person to put this type of project together, because he fully embraces science and technology and applies it to some of these natural mysteries, which is pretty fascinating.
So cool. So, you know, I find that interesting that you said that too, because I know the first time I met Doug was the first time that he met Lauren Coleman.
Mm-hmm.
And that was only a couple years ago. And I said, well, you know, Ken, you've been on Monster Quest once, twice. How many times have you been on there?
3.
And, you know, for you, like, I just find it interesting that, you know, the guy producing the show hasn't met the people on the show. And he's like, well, yeah, Lauren Coleman's been on the show a whole bunch of times. Ken's been on the show a whole bunch of times, and you never got to meet him. It's just
No. Well, he the way Monster Quest was produced back in the day, White Wolf, Doug oversaw everything. He was the executive producer, and he kind of had the final say on everything. But a lot of the individual episodes were farmed out to different production companies. So I worked with a production company from Canada, and then I went down to Mexico for an episode. So it was I worked with other producers. I never met Doug. I think I may have corresponded with him around that time, via email, or maybe we may have had a phone call or two. But he didn't. I don't know how frequently he made it out to the field. Now, I think he most definitely was involved, because I know he was on some episodes, and probably some of the episodes that were like up in Canada. I'm just speculating, but you remember the one where they're at the cabin, I think in Ontario, Meldrum's up there. He may have been more actively involved as far as boots on the ground with some of those types of episodes, but they were shooting so many episodes around that time. There's no way he would have been able to travel and oversee like every single shoot that was going on around that time. So
absolutely. Yeah. So hopefully he's I don't know all the stuff that's going into that, because I mean there's so much stuff even just in there that, like I had him on my show a couple weeks ago and we were talking about this, but he's got in there that robotic baby Bigfoot.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
It's kind of interesting, because I had years ago someone approached me about this and said, this is how you can prove Bigfoot's real. Build like a robotic Bigfoot. You could have walking around in the woods with cameras on it and stuff. And I thought that was a really far out idea, but I guess it's not. I mean, if the technology's there to do it, why not? Yeah, I don't know about that, but I think some of the other, I think as far as like science, what's going on with science in 2023 with regard to Bigfoot, I think two things that you would hopefully focus on. One would be environmental DNA or eDNA collection and analysis, because I think that is certainly it's a huge potential for, finding proof of Bigfoot. And also, LiDAR technology. I know a lot of researchers now that are using LiDAR. You can get a drone with a LiDAR set up, and you can basically, see through the trees and, basically terraform the ground. And so, I mean, there's a lot of cool technology that's around now that wasn't around when they filmed the first Legend Meets Science, which was a great documentary. But all these years later now, the technology and the science has advanced to the point where there's a lot of new, angles for them to pursue. So,
absolutely. Question here: if they're that elusive, wouldn't they be intelligent enough with all their own senses to know it's a robot AI?
I mean, that would be my assumption. I would think most animals have sensory, not just intelligence, but animals have, compared to humans, most animals have an advanced olfactory or sense of smell. Their sense of hearing is often, wider than ours. So they might be able to hear like mechanical noises. I just think that they would be, sense that there was something unnatural about a robotic baby Bigfoot. But I don't know. Let's give it a shot. If someone's got the desire to put that together, then I think it would be interesting to try it out.
I suppose there's always that one moment of curiosity that can open the door. And I'm thinking there, like along those lines, people have put a lot of weird stuff like, like squeaky, those rubber chickens out in the woods, hanging those around.
Oh,
they
yeah,
put glow sticks and stuff like that. So if you have this robotic Bigfoot sitting out in the woods, I think at the very least something would come in to be like, what is that? And try and like mess around with it that way, even if it's not the intent of interacting as a baby Bigfoot, but I don't know.
I think it's all about thinking outside the box. So, I mean, yeah, you're right. If there have been certain things that people have tried, endlessly, and they don't seem to get results. So if you've got a new twist or something new you want to try out, do it. let's see what happens.
That's a very good point. I mean, we've been doing the same thing with Bigfoot for the last 50 years, and we haven't got much farther than the Patterson-Gimlin film. It's time to try something different and see where it goes.
Yep.
Here's another question for you. Jack Chavez wants to know, in Missing in Alaska, you guys covered the vortex theory. Do you think there's any validity to that?
That's a good question. I mean, there certainly seem to be vortex areas around the planet, most famous Bermuda Triangle, but then you have the Alaska Triangle now is getting a lot of publicity, and then you have the Bridgewater Triangle and the Devil's Triangle south of Japan. I don't know if there's any validity to it in terms of the exact shape of a triangle. I think that's, I guess, I'm going to be a little bit of a hypocrite here in terms of that particular theory, that I don't know if it's going to be an exact parameter of a triangle shape. I think it could be just a big area, a big, massive area where you have, and a lot of it could do, from my experience in Alaska, I think a lot of it has to do up there with like electromagnetic anomalies, because you're closer to the pole, North Pole. The rocks, we were getting all kinds of unusual electromagnetic readings everywhere we went in Alaska, because there were like high concentrations of electromagnetic ore and other things in the rocks and the mountains that would throw off instrumentation. So that might be part of the factor there, is in terms of like malfunctioning navigation equipment on airplanes and things like that. Maybe that's what he's kind of asking me, is like, I don't know in terms of like a portal or a wormhole to another dimension. I don't know if we have enough data to make that leap yet. But I think that a lot of these vortex areas, which again, I don't think they're necessarily triangles, there's large areas of weird activity. And I think a lot of it has to do with the increased electromagnetic energy.
Very good. Very good. Guys, if you have any other questions for Ken while we got him here, we got a couple minutes left on the show here. So make sure you get those in, put them in the comments on wherever you're watching, and we'll try to get to them. Otherwise, Ken, we talked about some of the places that you're going to be. Where can people reach out to you, get a hold of you, send you sightings, all that stuff?
Well, thanks again for having me on, Barnaby. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, brother. I have a website, kengerhard.com. People can also find me on social media. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I have a YouTube channel if people want to check that out. I'm pretty easy to contact throughout social media and different platforms.
Awesome. And they can always come out and see you at the San Antonio Zoo if you're down there.
That's right. At the San Antonio Zoo every Wednesday.
Wednesdays. Awesome. What do you do down there? I know you volunteer and stuff. What do you talk about?
I'm a volunteer educator, so I interpret different exhibits for people. Sometimes I do tours, sometimes I do classrooms, but a lot of times they'll just station me lately I've been spending a lot of time at the Jaguar exhibit. We have a male and female jaguar that we're trying to get together. And that's been an interesting. I was there the other day. They finally put them together in the enclosure for the first time, and there were some shenanigans. And I love jaguars; they're fascinating. Bears. I move around quite a bit, so I just basically I'll be at a particular exhibit, just interpreting it for the guests, giving them information about a particular exhibit or a species or whatever.
Very cool. Again, if you have any other last minute questions, get them in here real quick. I got one last one for you here while we're on the topic of jaguars and stuff. Another one of the cryptids that we don't really talk about that much is the black or the melanistic cougars or panthers and stuff that are seen around, like, the United States and that. Do you, in my understanding, the melanistic thing is just another trait, another gene, similar to like the albinoism and stuff like that. Why is it so hard for like science and that to admit that that's real? Or, you have black other animals. Like, why is this such a big thing?
Well, I think you're asking, what are these black panthers that people are seeing in North America? The only truly large cat that we have in North America is the mountain lion, Puma concolor. there has never been a scientifically documented example of a black or melanistic mountain lion. We've never found any evidence that that gene does exist in that species. It could, but we just haven't found that yet. So that's one possibility, is that there are in fact black mountain lions on occasion. The other theories are that they could be black or melanistic leopards or jaguars that have escaped from collections and exhibits, which could be true in some of the cases as well, but I don't think it would explain the thousands of sightings that we've collected of these black panthers. So it's, again, a great cryptozoological mystery.
And these, like you're talking about like the jaguar and stuff, like these things are seen all over the place. Well, large cats have a very wide range, like their natural habitat and stuff. I know they've tracked, Wisconsin species all the way down into Illinois and animals that they've had on there. So
yeah, absolutely.
Jack would just like to thank you. Great books. You've dabbled in various paranormal topics, but have you ever had a ghost experience? There's the last question for you.
Yeah, I guess you'd consider this a ghost experience. I was tagging along on a ghost hunt in Jefferson, Texas, which is one of the most haunted, supposedly, little towns in Texas. And we were at I think it was called the McKay House. It's pretty well known. And a large, heavy door to the kitchen and the interior of the house suddenly slammed shut by itself. And I mean, there was no breeze. We tried to debunk that forever, like why that happened. There were no breezes in the house. No one had opened an outside door. This was a big, heavy door, and it was completely open, pushed up against the wall, and it just went bam, like that in front of us. And we just all looked at each other like, did that just happen? So I don't know. I guess you would consider that a ghostly experience, a big door slamming by itself. I thought it was pretty weird.
Absolutely. How many ghost hunts have you been on, Ken?
Oh, a few.
Few.
Yeah, I'll just tag along. I have friends that do that, and I think it's interesting, but I don't do that many, honestly.
Awesome. Ann says, great show. I agree. Thank you so much, Ken, for being on. It's always a pleasure talking to you. You are a wealth of knowledge on so many cryptozoology topics, and I look forward to having you back on my new show when we start up on Doug's network. So,
thank you, Barnaby. Congratulations on opening a new chapter in your broadcasting career. Very excited for you.
Thank you much, sir. All right. Any other things that you got? What's your next coming up event?
I'll be in Morristown, Tennessee this weekend for the Southeast Tennessee Paracon.
Awesome. All right. Well, hopefully I get to see you out there again soon.
Sounds good.
All right. Take care, man.
Take
I'll
care.
talk to you later. All right, guys. Ken Gerhard, amazing, great guy. Pleasure to have him on the show. And guys, that's it for me here on WLTK-DB Talk Radio. It has been an absolute pleasure to be on this station and be part of this network and get to talk with all you guys every week. Todd is an amazing producer, a great guy, and yeah, it's been a blast. This whole station is like a family, and I look forward to coming back as a guest on some other shows on the network. I know Todd has asked me to come on in a month or so here. I think I can't remember when, but I'll be back. And until then, guys, I am on the same time. I'm just moving to a new network. And my new show here, Monsters on the Edge, debuts next Monday. Our first show, Greetings from Wisconsin. Carrie Bladorn and Ben Brunell from Rhinelander, Wisconsin. Carrie is a Hodag and Rhinelander historian. He's going to tell us all about the Hodag and the history of Rhinelander. And Ben Brunell is the owner of the Hodag store in Rhinelander, and they're going to tell you all about the mythical Pine Barren beast, the Hodag. And then in the second part of the episode, I have Jay Butchochin from Finding Jay. And he is a Bigfoot researcher right here from Wisconsin. He recently got a footprint cast down in southern Wisconsin, as well as had a recent sighting. So it is a great show coming up, and you get to see all that Monday Morning Monsters. This is the last episode, but Monsters on the Edge is coming to you next week, and it is on the Untold Radio Network. So hope you guys can tune in. It'll be on noon to 1, same as this, just on a different channel. So until next time, guys, I have to pull up my thingy. Where's my end credits? There they are. All right. Until next time, guys, we'll see you out there.
The truth is here and now on WLTK-DB Talk Radio at WLTK-DB.com.